pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Buns,
Present?
Wyatt,
Here.
Lawson.
Aye.
Reister,
Here.
Engel, absent.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on it? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have one question, if we can go back to that. I just
Okay.
wanted to double check to make sure, because the action for the Depot Museum was on that. Have we sent, do we know whose stuff is in there beside, I mean, have we notified anybody that we know has things in there?
No.
And can we put it anywhere, like maybe in the paper or
Yeah,
something
yep,
like that?
that's the plan, is to put
Okay.
it,
I just
put it
wanna
on-
make sure.
That paragraph's gonna go into the
Yeah.
paper.
Okay.
put it in the
And
paper,
then
I'll put it on Facebook.
George was
And
gonna
I'm gonna
also
stop and talk to Swen.
talk to Sven.
Okay, good,
So
cause, yeah, and
that
I
he
know,
can give some.
Braden Rogers has some family stuff in there as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, Mary Busey does too.
Yep, and
Yeah,
I've gotten one
which is fine, I
request
just wanted to
back.
make sure this
Yeah.
wasn't the
Yeah.
only action that we're obviously taking to let people know, because we don't wanna discard of anything that's
Nope, nope, and
important.
I think that there are, like note cards or something somewhere,
Yeah.
so it's more
I think
of,
there is too.
Because
Trying-
Mary's got copies of them,
Yeah.
she told me, she
Yeah.
showed me.
Just trying to identify stuff that's
yep,
in there.
and it's
I
more
know
of trying to get an inventory taken so that we know what's there, what we're putting back
That's
in.
perfectly fine, I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we brought that up, because I know it was in consent, but go from there too. Thank you.
Under Citizens Quest, I sent out the email that Heather Bartlett sent to us relative to Waters Road, and Heather and others want to speak to that.
Sure,
Here's your shot.
okay. So, as our families are growing and we have children that are getting vehicles, it would be a huge inconvenience to have to rotate vehicles every morning in order for our children to get out to go to work. Right now, you can park on either side, and very rarely do we park on the street, but there are occasions when we have family gatherings, kids over, I mean, there's just there's a new dynamic as the kids get older, there's more vehicles. So if 4 people live in your home, you may have 4 or 5 vehicles. So I'm just curious why only Waters Road would be, I mean, I read through this, I understand safety. And I wouldn't be objected to the curve down there, that there's no parking on either side, past Urbanics, which is, I don't think people park down there though. Occasionally we'll have a car out on, one of the kids' cars out on the street. Maybe somebody stops by, or a couple people stop by our garage and they're here to visit, but it's short. It's usually never overnight for us. So what time of day is it? It seems that it's the farming that is the issue. So that would be during the day and most everyone is gone. So I'm just,
From a timing standpoint, the bulk of the petition was from Hudson Heights, so they're coming in, going back from work, so pretty much any hour of the day, and then the farmers, Greg Strayer and others, from
Are
the standpoint of,
early in the morning, late
yeah,
at night, at times.
which could be any time of day.
Yeah,
Their concern was with parking on either side there, the equipment continues to get bigger. And they're concerned about coming through and scratching up the vehicle and potentially being accused of damage.
Not only that, but if a car tries to come the same way or at the same
Right.
time, there's no way for a big piece of
Mhm.
equipment to take a ditch, because there's mailboxes on both sides too. Which we also talked about that, which doesn't seem to be a reasonable explanation, and we'll go through that later, but.
The concern from the Hudson Heights was primarily, as I recall, especially around that curve, around the corner.
oh, the corner's not a big deal. I mean,
nobody parks.
nobody parks down there.
So how far would, from your perspective, how far would it be applicable to have a no parking from here to South Hudson
From
Road?
Mayfield's farm at the curb, so just past Urbanics.
Okay.
So the Mayfield place on the left and the Mayfield place on the right. Anything from there on, no parking. But it doesn't seem realistic to not be able to park on either side where our areas are. I mean, I could see if you wanted to do no parking one side, but I don't think there's very often that anyone would come upon, unless it's the Hudson Heights people going out there, because we leave from our driveway and go right, we don't go left. And is there not an alternate gravel road that could be taken, or is that just too out of the way?
Well, it depends on whether you're gonna go south or go north.
Right,
The gravel road, if you're going south, going to Tama, yeah, you're talking an extra 3 miles. And then it's all gravel as opposed to right now it's seal coated all the way out to Hudson Heights.
right.
So I'm
And
sure
then
that's part of their
The
concern.
wear and tear there on the big equipment coming down that steel coat, is that a concern at all?
No.
Because there's 30 to 50 trucks hauling dirt to the pond a day right now.
Okay.
And those are big, heavy trucks.
What's your thought on parking on one side only?
Be fine with it.
Which
That
side?
would work.
It wouldn't matter.
Would you want to alternate day to day or just have it
Oh,
set
no.
as one side?
No, just have it the
We've
same
got
side all the
teenagers.
time. We have teenagers.
They're not gonna remember which side.
No. I mean, but if the biggest concern is the curb, I see no problem with that on either side.
I don't think that's the biggest concern, I just think that was one of the
One of the
concerns.
concerns, yeah.
And there's rarely, if I can jump in real quick, there's rarely ever vehicles parked on both sides at the same spot, which would be blocking any type of farm equipment or vehicle to get through.
Yeah, anytime I've driven through there, if there's been
It's
two, they
one
were
or the
quite a
other.
ways away
Right.
from each other.
Well, and we make sure that we park, like, we park our, if our children have cars parked on the road, we park them a little in the ditch. So we do, so like, they're further in the ditch than a normal vehicle would be, just for
Just
that
for that
reason,
reason, yes.
for safety. Because we do respect that there's
Right.
farmers and farm equipment,
Sure.
we see going back and forth.
Mhm.
So I think if we could come to some sort of compromise, maybe that would help everyone.
Great.
Just a couple of things. I've noticed that some parties do try to park somewhat off the road, others do not. In fact, I've got pictures on my phone of a dual axle truck parked totally on the street and probably 2 feet away from the edge of the hard surface.
You have that picture, is it, whose property is it in front of?
It would be a duplex.
What color duplex? There's a couple there.
It's the one that's right at the crest of the hill.
So that'd be the yellow duplex,
I'm not familiar with the color.
crest of the hill.
The time I've seen a dually out there,
Who has a duplex?
Nobody does now.
no, you know,
Oh.
This is in the past.
Okay.
But there's also been an issue with a trailer parked away from the edge of.
A tractor trailer,
No.
You think it's
an enclosed
Barry's
trailer.
trailer?
That would be my husband.
Barry's work trailer?
Mhm.
But now he pulls it in to our yard,
Right.
in between our two houses. So that's off the street now, unless he just runs home
sure.
And rents back.
and then he'd be gone.
Mhm.
But again, there's nobody on the opposite side.
No.
That would be parked, blocking. the
But
entire-
are there mailboxes across the street?
No, ours are all
Are
our
they?
mailboxes, well,
Yeah.
Kane's and, Johnson. Theirs are on their side, and so is Sadie's, but the rest of ours are on this side.
On the south side,
South side,
I was
yeah.
thinking I'd seen 4 or 5, I didn't count for sure, mailboxes on the
So
north
it-
side.
But
there's
all of
some on
them
the north
south.
side too.
It'd be Mayfield, Urbanics, the blue duplex that's next to ours, and then your guys's.
Top what?
And then there's maybe 3 or 4 of them for, yeah. for
That's where the
theirs.
Hickory mailboxes are, but they're offset.
What about a concept like 2-hour limit parking? I'm just throwing ideas out.
That wouldn't work for
Yeah.
overnight.
Okay, right.
We got kids coming
Same
and
thing
going.
with the snow.
Yeah, snow
Or
too.
when things are being plowed, you know, we can't plow our driveway if we can't park on the street.
And we do,
One of the points that was made at the last meeting was that in the summertime, it's fairly convenient to park partially off the hard surface.
Mhm.
In the wintertime, it probably wouldn't work because the snowplow doesn't push the snow that far.
Are you guys bringing a lot of heavy equipment through in the winter?
I don't think it's just heavy equipment he's talking about.
Oh, what are we talking about now then?
I mean, there's, the whole concern with this, that from the perspective of that, you know, the petition and everything,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just heavy equipment, it was the size of the road, with people parked on the side, and with the snowplow, I mean, I can see that too, but that's neither here nor there. You know, if somebody's walking in between the cars or whatever the case may be, that people aren't doing the speed limit, which we have talked about having our police chief out there more police out there to monitor some speeds.
Please do,
Obviously,
That's
yeah.
definitely
we-
please do, it's
Well-
definitely a
Because
concern,
there's
he's a
definitely,
police
there's
officer.
definitely,
Yeah.
I am with Cedar Falls.
Yeah,
And I definitely noticed there's
oh, absolutely.
excess speeds like crazy out here.
I
If you're
know.
going-
But there
if
is
you're
on my
going-
street
If you're
too,
going the speed
you know.
limit or under, and there's a car parked on, say, their side of the road, there is absolutely enough room that two cars can squeeze through there, not an issue. If one alternates, even better, but I've lived there since January. I've seen cases where I've come home and there's been a car parked, and I've had absolutely no room, or no problem, getting through. There's been plenty of room, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of it though is, it is to me, just looking at this, and again, I shouldn't get into this in public comment section,
Okay, it's fine.
is
It's
the,
fine.
is the narrowness of that road, and then you put two cars on it and it makes it that much more narrow. We don't have any other street in this town, Ranchero even included, that's that narrow. And we don't have any other street in this town that's that narrow. Now, eventually, is that on the radar eventually to redo that road? Yeah, maybe in 10 years. You know, it's not on anybody's radar right now because it's not a bad road to redo.
I mean, we're willing, absolutely willing to be flexible, to be good neighbors.
Mhm.
If it's one side, absolutely. If you wanna make no parking both sides from Mayfield's around the curve, I encourage that. That curve is deadly,
Mhm.
and I can't believe there hasn't been a head-on collision there. And I think also, if we're gonna talk about that and the safety there, and we're gonna make it, then I think that that big bush there needs to be trimmed back so that you have eyesight.
Who's, that's not our
Mayfield.
place.
Maybe
I know.
vehicles.
Is that in the right of way, do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can look into
Well, yeah,
that.
especially when the leaves are on it.
Oh,
It's a- It's
absolutely.
a for sure blind corner.
I mean, just, if we're gonna talk about safety and. you
Right,
know.
I mean, the whole thing is just, you know, if there are cars there and then, you know, there's also kids involved, you know, you guys are, your kids
Absolutely.
are getting older.
That-
but
they all have, yeah, they all
That
have
doesn't mean that
vehicles.
there's not little kids out there too, or won't be eventually again.
There
You
is.
know, you get a kid that runs out in between a car and you got another car that can't see coming off of
Absolutely.
that thing. And especially when you're coming off of Hudson Road because you're facing into the sun at sunset. You know, so part of that too with the narrower road, it's just, is it a safety concern? It obviously is for one section of the neighborhood,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, more than maybe the other section, but, you know, that's where it comes into play.
It's a rarity that we would have cars parked on both sides. Now, I'm not gonna tell you that we're not gonna, before COVID, that we don't have people over or have a party and there's 20 cars on the road.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna tell you that, but that's isolated. That's not a,
Common occurrence.
no.
Greg, what would you think about a step in this direction as opposed to all the way to no parking? Doing a no parking around the corner
Well,
and then a one-side parking?
because harvest is in full swing, the farmers are not here.
Sure.
They asked that I speak on their behalf,
Mhm.
and their concern is the narrowness of the road, and whether we're parked one side or two sides, the issue is the same. The machinery has trouble getting through safely. They don't want to cause an issue for anybody. And I think their concern is, there's just not enough width on the paved surface to accommodate cars parked on one side or two, and still move machinery through there.
And that to me says maybe they need to take an alternate route. I mean, if we can't come to some, I mean, it seems, if their safety is their concern and the width of the road is the concern, we don't have people living, you know, all along that gravel out there. We do have families with children, young children, teenage children that are living, and we need to still be able to function.
Yeah, my take on it is, obviously, at the end of the day, that's still a residential area.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a farming area, so we have to be accommodating to the residents of the area. We can't make, you know, just deem it a farming area and make it passable for farming equipment. At the end of the day, there's people that live there that have families.
I think if it was not a through street serving a rural area and wasn't a through street serving a housing area such as Hudson Heights, I don't think there would be an issue here at all.
Just,
But it does serve Hudson Heights and a high-traffic road. 30 years ago, the county would have designated this as a farm-to-market road. And there's other farm-to-market roads coming into Hudson, Eldora Road, Schropp, and so forth. I don't think we allow parking on the hard surface on those roads.
We don't have a no parking sign out that way, Greg.
Mm-mm.
No,
Nobody
there's-
parks there.
Is
but we
there
don't
an
have a no
ordinance?
parking zone.
Nope,
there's not an ordinance for that side of
I don't
Eldora?
believe so.
I've never seen
Might
any
not
signs,
recall.
cause I went out
Sounds
and
so much
checked.
better.
What about, is there no parking on either side in Hudson Heights?
That's
We don't
outside
know.
of
That's not,
Hudson,
yeah,
so
it's
not
not in the
ours.
city limits.
I'm
so.
afraid that's a private driveway.
Mhm.
It's not a
Yeah,
public
there's
street at
nothing we
all.
can do that.
If people did start parking on Eldora Road on the hard surface, would that be a problem?
Lot wider there because there's, especially on the north side,
Yeah.
I'd have to almost go measure, and no, I know in the future, if the ground to the south develops, we're gonna be widening that area.
Yeah.
The challenge here is the width standpoint. The concern I've got with going all the way to no parking right away is the fact that we've gone a lot of years, no excuse, we've gone a lot of years without a major issue. I'm not against going to no parking, but I would suggest that the council consider, as a temporary move or an interim measure, go into a one side only, but a no parking out around the curve, and deal with that and see if that helps having the citizens aware of the concern for the farmers.
Yeah.
As far as pulling through there, I think that could possibly give the residents an opportunity to try to keep it to a minimum, keep it off to the side when they can.
Yeah, we currently have no vehicles on our road, so.
I'm looking at this map right here. Is there any way for you to pull that up or not?
I have one more question too. Did Urbanic submit comments to you, Chrissy?
Nope, you're the only one.
Okay, she was gonna too.
See, and that's the hard thing, and I was gonna say, I asked Chrissy that before the meeting too. Your email, I was gonna send you a message today and just say, I'm glad you guys both came, because one email saying, everybody out here doesn't want this,
But nobody
unfortunately
can
doesn't
do
hold
anything.
weight, because I can say, everybody in town wants this, and I don't know that for a fact. So if there is anybody else that has comments, will you tell them to send it in individually
Yeah, I know
too?
Jan intended to. She
Yeah.
has her grandkids, but
That's
I
fine.
don't know.
That's fine, I just wanted to make sure you knew
She
that.
said, you know, we haven't had a problem in 40 years that I've lived here. How can we have a problem now?
We say that too, but I said that about the underpass going over there too, that in 43 years that I've lived here, nobody's ever been hit, but we're sure willing to spend $1 million to put underpass to make sure no kid did get hit. I kind of look at this the same way, that we want to make sure we at least explore all the options to make sure there isn't an incident.
Absolutely.
You know,
What specific
so-
address?
I just wanna see a satellite view.
Just go to Waters
of
Road
that
on
street.
Of our road?
Yeah, up there.
Just of that corner,
Cause
what
I
you'd
wanna,
like to
I
really
wanna
see.
ask you guys a question about this.
Okay.
I think the other thing that impacts this is farm equipment continues to get bigger. I grew up on a
Absolutely.
farm
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it's a whole different
Yeah, we just
ballgame.
wanna make sure, you
Yeah,
know,
it
we
is
have
a
to explore all the
different
options with it too, so,
So,
Now, I just had a question
Sure.
about road durability. Is there a specific weight rating on that road currently?
No.
I was just curious, because I know it's been chip sealed. I wouldn't necessarily call it chip sealing. It's
Just
more
go to-
gravel. I
go
would
to
say it's
Google
more
Maps.
gravel at this point. I don't know if the.
so is
As
mine
far
on
as running
first,
for
so is mine on
residences?
second.
I don't know if it was how it was done, but it basically is almost transported into a gravel road at this point.
So is Second Street that I live.
So I was just curious
I
about
didn't, I
that.
drove out there tonight, I didn't think it was that bad.
Because,
Really?
I drive a truck, it's a
Yeah.
two-wheel drive right now. When I'm coming out of Waters to turn onto Hudson, if I don't just barely ease on the gas, I'm spinning tires on gravel. And then there's other instances on there where it's just more loose gravel than the road, I would say.
Wait 2 months and it'll be gone.
Yeah.
As soon as we plow the snow off.
yeah,
Spinning on
We'll
ice
take it.
then.
Well, and that's the other part I was gonna mention too, with snow, you know, we do have a new snow ordinance now that you cannot park when there is so much, when it's being
There it
plowed.
is.
Okay.
So here's Highway 58.
okay, there's the corner.
There's the
That's-
So
corner they're
where would
talking
you
about.
stop, where would you wanna stop?
Yeah.
Say no
Yeah,
parking
here.
is where?
Yeah, please.
It'd be right there.
Okay,
So Urbanic should be right here, so this would be the Mayfield line, which is the bad corner. So if you did no parking both sides from here down, no problem. And if you did no parking one side, it's just as few families right here in the original Hudson Heights.
what about that house
Which one?
right under the RD and Waters Road? Is that a house?
Yep,
So what about them? They don't need to park on the street?
no, they park in their yard.
They have that big,
They have that
barn.
big horse barn and they don't ever park on the street.
They
He
have
was-
parking on-
he was-
Well, one night they parked on the street when there were 50 people there, but,
They're selling, their house is for sale too.
well, this one is, but I don't know if this property goes with it.
I don't
think
believe it does.
Oh, I thought it does.
No, this is the
Not my
grandkids
understanding,
of the Mayfields that live in this house with a son,
Oh,
and I don't know.
I don't either, but
yeah, and this is all for sale, but they don't ever, they park in the yard, they have an extra gravel driveway on their property. They actually have a double driveway, a single driveway, they have another driveway, and then they have this grass area that they park. And there's
Do you guys only
sometimes,
have a single driveway into your house?
we do,
Do most of the residents?
yep.
Yes.
They have
Is
long
there room for
driveways, so
two?
your houses are separate.
Some are long, but some are not long, like
There's
Sarah's,
our single driveways.
And it's
and
downhill,
it's down a hill.
so we have to park.
So when it does snow or when we get big rains, then they have to come up and park in our yard. You know, so we do accommodate our neighbors as best we
And
can.
there's, you know, I just recently switched vehicles to a truck now, but, you know, they're, and my neighbors, they don't have any, large vehicles, and especially with Hickory, it doesn't get plowed right away, or ever, in some cases, a lot of times. Gary will, plow it for us.
Mhm.
As I'm looking at Jake, I'm just kidding.
I say, that's not us.
Yeah, I don't know
So-
who it would be.
That's a
So
private lane.
there's times, you know, if we get a big snowfall, I can't pull down, so I have to park on the road, you know, and walk down to my place,
And they do
so.
also.
You know,
Yeah.
if there was no parking, you know, then.
City limits goes out, actually, all the way to the gravel road.
Past Smith's. So the last place here, the last part here, city line is right past Smith's,
On the north side, south
On the
side
north, yeah.
goes further.
down here.
Yeah, the road,
The south side.
our
goes
portion of
down.
the road ends right where you pointed.
Yeah, yeah, that's where the Hudson
County does
City,
the other part.
County does the other
Through
part.
2080 agreement. They asphalted that this year. Any other comments? Greg?
The no parking regarding the curb, I understand that, sounds like a good idea, but it doesn't really address the issue of the hill and the limited sight distance of the hill.
I'm
What
just
hill?
curious, where do you think there's a hill? Because once I come around that curve, I can see clear down the road. I don't understand, what is that, what do you mean by that hill?
You were going west to east?
Right here's the crest of the hill.
It may be a slight incline, but if you're sitting in any vehicle that's got any road clearance, you can clearly see.
If you're headed this way, you cannot see vehicles crossing the city limit line.
I would
This is
disagree with
I would
that,
beg to
but
differ.
Corey's got something apparently too.
Hi, Mike, I'm on a Zoom meeting, so now's not a good time. Can I call you back?
Corey, mute yourself.
That must be Brenda.
He was just for the
Yeah.
STD broadband.
Okay.
Past the city line.
Any other- Any other comments? Okay.
No, I mean, we're, you know, obviously, able to be flexible, and during this harvest time, as much as possible, we can keep, you know, at least our vehicles as much as possible off the road. I mean, that's something that we're willing to do. If there's gonna be an occasion where there's gonna be a car that comes and pulls up and,
Or visitor.
yeah, a visitor or something, because there just isn't anywhere else to
I would
park.
just suggest we don't take such a drastic measure right
I
off the bat.
agree.
We come to some sort of compromise.
Mhm.
Great.
A point made by the farmers, if they were here, I'm sure they'd be making it again. Parking on one side, I think should be considered, but if you allow the mailboxes to stay on the other side of the road, you've still got farm equipment issues. If you move all the mailboxes to the side that the parking's on, now the postman cannot deliver the mail. So that's one of the reasons that there's interest in the no parking.
May I make comment on that?
Sure.
None of the mailboxes stick out over the road. All of our mailboxes are offset.
It doesn't, I mean, we don't have any control over the mailboxes. We tried to talk with them too. There's no control over that, and any mailbox has to have 6 feet in, 6 feet out.
Greg, your
So-
point was if there's people parked on the one side, the width from their door out to the mailbox on the other side is not still gonna be a challenge for the farm equipment?
Right.
Okay.
Then they're coming over the road. I mean, like greatly over the road.
You know, some of those equipments are 30 feet wide on a 26, 27-foot road, so it's a challenge regardless.
It is.
That's,
then they
then
just shouldn't
I
come down
think
that road.
that if that's how big they are, then they should reroute.
I'm gonna close the discussion. We'll go to item
Thanks
A.
for all of
Thanks
your
for all the
input.
comments.
Thank you.
Did you want a committee report? Committee report.
Yeah, let's go to the committee report.
Where are we at?
Yes, Gail, please, let's have a committee report.
Okay, Administration Personnel Finance Committee met on Monday, September 28th.
First item that we covered was the multi-hazard emergency operations plan that's on tonight's agenda. That Intercog did go through and make the changes, especially that fire department wanted and stuff, and so we'll be voting on that tonight. Then the city asked about adding surveillance to City Hall and the police department. We've talked about this for a number of years, but we're talking about, so the city's requesting 5 cameras. 3 of those to be inside City Hall and 2 on the external. And that would be at a cost of the cameras at $1,196. Monthly cost for storage is $57.50. That's cloud storage, right, for the films. And then labor costs would be $1,660. And so the committee recommended that it go to council for approval, and it's on tonight's agenda as well. Then next, the city administrator clerk recommended that the city go to a key fob entrance. We just don't know how many keys are out there these days, and so got a bid then from Hawkeye Alarm for the cost of the project would be $5,088. Indicated this was the same system that the Hudson schools had. Also wanted to see about getting wired at the same time than a handicap push button back there, because I think we've needed that. We can't do it on the front one because the incline is too much. So it has to be the back door that has to be the handicap accessible. And so Chrissy was gonna go ahead and check on that, and I believe
Yeah,
that's
it's
on,
in- yep,
that's
it should
on
be in there.
tonight's agenda as well. So the committee recommended that it go to city council, so.
Gail, any questions for Gail?
Also just a question, did you guys talk about then putting signage outside to show? That's
Yeah.
another thing that'll go to say handicap door on this side or something like that, so,
Yeah, we can.
yeah, I just think that
Yeah,
that's
we didn't
something-
talk about it, but that's certainly a good
Yeah.
idea.
Because if somebody comes to this side or whatever. but
Right.
Just to think
Yeah.
about for the
Yep.
cost when we're
Well,
doing
that,
this.
and also, that's why the handicap parking's down
Yeah,
on
no,
that
I
side.
100% agree, but just so that we
Yeah,
want
we
that.
can absolutely put
Yep.
something up there that says.
I'm sure you could probably get one that says like handicap entrance.
Yeah, and then my next question will be just like in free time, did we look at other places?
Yeah, I looked at everybody I could.
Did we get other bids?
No. Everybody that I talked to would not bid on it.
They wouldn't bid on it to do it
No.
because of, they just say why or just,
No.
they just didn't come
They
back
just
with anything?
didn't come back with anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. General government. Hudson City Council maintains the right to waive the first and second readings of the ordinances presented and may pass the third and final reading of the same ordinance within the same council meeting. Item A, discussion action to approve the second reading of ordinance 837, an ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Hudson, Iowa by adding chapter 6908, no parking zone for specifically Waters Road. I would be willing to accept a motion to approve the second reading. I would be willing to accept a motion to deny the second reading. I would accept some type of a motion of a variation to what we have from the standpoint. You all take a shot.
I'm gonna move that we approve the second reading. And we still have a third reading after this. I've got a couple comments, but I guess I better wait to see if there's a second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Discussion.
I went out there and stepped it off, is it 24 feet?
Yeah, we
20
thought 24, 25.
24 feet, narrow road. If this was coming up on Ranchero Road, I would certainly support it. Now, Ranchero Road has a lot more drastic of a hill, and so that might be factored into that. I think that there's similar situations. Between now, if we were to pass the second reading, between the second and third reading, I really want Chief Banks to weigh in on this. And I know he was at that initial meeting, but, I mean, I wanna present some of these things that these folks have presented to Daniel and just see what his response is, unless any of you already know the answers to that in conversations you've had.
In the conversation I had with him during the public safety meeting, he did not express an opinion one way or the other and said he would enforce whatever way we chose to go.
So, I remember that. And
It was
what
the
I-
same statement the last council meeting too, the first reading.
I wouldn't mind having, if this is a thing that we can do, but I wouldn't mind having some off-the-record conversation with him. I know he wants, Daniel wants to get along, Chief Banks wants to get along with the community, and I'm sure he's more than willing to enforce whatever we decide, that's the kind of guy he is. But, and so maybe he didn't want to voice kind of which way he might be leaning on it in a public forum.
Fair point.
I'd be interested in hearing what he has to say, because he would have some insight into this that at least I don't have. And there's still one more reading we need to get through, so we've got some time to do that. So that's why I would move this, and that's why I would actually advocate that we vote to advance the second reading.
So if we go ahead and pass this on the second one, we get to the third, can we amend it?
We would have to go back and
We'd
restart
have to
over.
start
What we could do though at that point is we would have had so
So
much
just
time,
didn't, yeah.
we could amend it and we could waive the first two readings by that point.
Yeah, but you'd have to start over, so you would have to do.
Do a new public
You'd have to do a
hearing.
new public hearing.
Yep.
So you would, so if you get to the third reading and you decide that you want to amend it, you would just deny the way that it's read now, and then we would just start
So
over.
the same goes for tonight, we can't amend it tonight either.
No.
We'd have to start.
No,
over.
you would deny it tonight, and then we'd start over.
Yeah, so I think we ought to keep the train moving forward for now. I'd like to talk to Daniel, or Chief, I keep saying Daniel, Chief Banks, Mayor Wessel, whatever.
That dude over there.
Yeah. And I can ask Heather, our city attorney, too, what the proper procedure is if we want to amend something, do we have to start over, or how does that work? Just so that way, when we get to that next portion,
We know what our options.
we know what we can do.
Another good exchange, I think, in the discussion here tonight that I want to probe into a little bit is those other roads that are coming into town.
Yeah.
I think somebody said there's no parking signs on those. And then Greg, you said, but if people did start parking on those roads, would that be a problem? I mean, that's something I want to talk to Chief about as
Be
well.
proactive instead of reactive.
Well,
with
and
some of that.
just get like, okay, let's make sure we're being consistent, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because we'd want to look Eldora Road East, we'd want to.
Yeah, I pulled up the ordinance, just a second. I just had to make myself a note, sorry. Okay, so.
I thought we were waiting for you.
No. So on Eldora Road, there is no parking on both sides running southwesterly to the city limits and northerly to Iowa Highway 58. And then on East Eldora Road, there is no parking on the south side from Highway 63 to 3,000 feet east. Yeah, of the intersection
So
of
north and
Highway
south.
63.
Those are both within city limits.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So going out that way, no parking on the right-hand side.
And
I
then,
guess I don't look for no parking signs because I don't intend to park.
I don't know that they are signs.
Waterloo Road, there's no parking on both sides between the intersection of 63 and Washington. That would be partly due to the fire station.
Yeah, so Colo's all the way over
Yeah,
too.
and then there's no parking between Washington Street on the west side of Wood and School, but is permitted for persons with disability.
Across the- no,